Hello and welcome to City Talk 2022. It's our first brand spanking new episode of City Talk for this year. I am back in the studio and our guests are appropriately enough in a remote location, as is appropriate for the times in which we live. I'm sure I don't have to explain that to you. Let's talk to our first guest of the year, Dolly Bellhouse, who is the Department of Innovation and Performance. One of our human beings, as I happen to belong to the same department, but she holds a much more high and exalted position. And thank goodness for that. Dolly, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. So tell us what your title is and a bit about what you do.
All right. I am a manager of the innovation team within the Department of Innovation and Performance. And our team is a bit of an eclectic team and structured purposely to get people who kind of look at opportunities and issues differently. And then we get some creativity around that. We're comprised of process improvement engineers, civic innovation specialists who are kind of the outward facing part of that and are looking at issues like digital equity in the community. We have business relationship managers who are looking at strategic tech assistance to all the other city departments. And we have a part-time process improvement trainer. It's not a process improvement trainer, excuse me, but looking at all of training needs within the department.
So I know you're big on process improvement. I remember when you first got here, you were very enthusiastic about that, analyzing what people do. You look at it, they look at it, just to see if there's a better way to do it, more efficient way to do it. How's that been going for you?
It's going well. As a manager, I do less of that. I tell my colleague Mantra Sutaria that we have about 1.3 people help working on process improvement, but a lot of people have learned about process improvement through the Gold Belt Workshop. We took that online in the end of 2020, and they're still offering that online.
And the Gold Belt Workshop is where you actually teach people about the process of process improvement, if you will.
Exactly. And process improvement is, I think, simply put, is we all do our work every day and don't necessarily think about how we do it. We know what we're doing and we know what's required, but we haven't. But if we can take a moment and step back and look at how we do our work, we may find small ways of making it easier, faster, quicker, cheaper. So we're looking at sort of cultivating that thought of how can I make my work better.
And you mentioned civic innovation as well. Define that for us.
Well, civic innovation is really looking at what are the needs in the community related to digital equity, if you will. And so digital equity is really saying that people should have all the information technology they need to be able to fully participate in society, in democracy, in the economy. And if you think of the issues that have been raised up, particularly around in the pandemic, many people use the libraries to get information, to apply for jobs, and then the libraries closed. Many people are working at home, but they don't have the strength of the broadband to be able to manage all that at home. Some don't even have access. So those are the kinds of issues that civic innovation is looking, because they're civic innovation from a tech standpoint, if you will.
So do you have an example of a way in which you're able to get somebody the computer equipment that they're denied because the library's closed?
Well, so we work with other community organizations who have been working on that. A variety of those folks, like Welcoming Pittsburgh and Hello Neighbor and Neighborhood Allies. There's a whole group of people. There's also, we do work with startups in the community, and we sponsor startups in invitation to help us solve city problems, if you will, through the PGH Lab program, which is just starting its 8th cohort now.
So if I want to engage in a startup in the city somewhere, it would be wise for me to get a hold of you.
A hold on Elad Mohammed and Trevor Stoll, who are the civic innovation specialists. But yes, because it gives you a chance to maybe beta test some things that you are looking at in your startup, and you want to see, does it help government? And so that's the city champions here, the people in the departments, they review what you're doing, you make a proposal, and then we look for a match.
All right. And in the beginning of this, so we talked about process improvement and civic innovation. Wasn't there a third component to your team?
Yes, the business relationship managers.
And tell us about that?
So the business relationship managers are really the as I like to think of them, they are the strategic tech liaison to all the other departments. So I'm a good example. I'm not the most tech savvy person, but I want the technology available to me to help me do my job. But I may not know that there's maybe a better tech way to do it. The business relationship managers can not only help me, but they also have the ability, there's 4 of them that cover the whole city, so they can kind of look and see, are there things going on in permits and licensing that could help somebody out in DPW or in the ethics office. So it really spans all of the parts of the city and looking at how do we optimize what we have? Are there other things that need to be done? Are there things coming down the pike we should be preparing for?
So you say you're not the most tech savvy person, neither am I. How do we get these jobs? You don't have to answer that.
We have tolerant colleagues.
I see. Okay. So you have a background in healthcare, right, before coming to the city?
I do, yes.
Tell us about that.
So I worked in healthcare administration for a couple of decades, actually, and worked here in Pittsburgh. Started out at what is now Heritage Valley, and that's Swickley Valley Hospital in the Med Center of Beaver. And then I went from there to the Yale New Haven Health System in Connecticut, and then did some independent consulting and performance improvement in healthcare across the country for a number of years. And that actually I kept in touch with friends in Pittsburgh, and a couple of former colleagues reached out to me, and they were looking for a person to join the management team at Jefferson Hospital. So I came back in 2012.
So you've got quite a bit of private sector experience. How do you like the public sector in comparison?
I see similarities in that, because except for working with my own firm, which was a for-profit firm, we were all focused on not-for-profit healthcare. Or from my experience, it didn't mean we wouldn't work for-profit healthcare, but my experience was all on the not-for-profit side. And what really struck me and attracted me to healthcare was the end game was taking good care of the patient, making sure the patient had what they need, had the communication they needed, and there's always things that could be better there. What I find about the city that I didn't expect is that people here care about getting things for citizens. And so having that common focus is really what excites me about my work now, as it excited me thinking about that we were trying to make things better for patients. So
awesome. How have you been coping with COVID?
I think fairly well. I've been spending my in some ways, COVID has helped me. I try to make a point of getting outside most every day, and I've been walking about 100 miles a month.
And you walk. We had a conversation before we went to air here. We both walk up and down steep hills, although yours are in Mount Washington, so they may be steeper than mine on the north side. But
yeah. The hills actually add a dimension, a different dimension to the walking, and
yes,
and it's a time for me to kind of let things go. It's a time to get good energy. I do it in the rain, I do it in the snow, I do it in the summer heat. So
I was just going to ask about that, because I've been taking some mighty cold walks these last couple of days. Are you still out there every day?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you layer up, I assume? You got like 50 layers?
I do layer up. Yeah, exactly. But you have to understand, I grew up in Maine, so I'm not.
So this is nothing.
The cold is not foreign to me.
And how is growing up in Maine? Do the fishermen all say, "Yep"?
Hey, yeah.
And not only
Which
do
for
they have
those listening, that means yes.
and they also have wonderful blueberries and what is it, maple syrup? Is that correct?
Yes, you find maple syrup through a lot of northern New England, and the coastal Maine blueberries are the small sweet blueberries. Yeah.
Would you recommend a career in government service?
Yes, I would.
Well, thank you so much, Dolly. It's really been good getting to know you all over again. The size of your team and the projects you have increased like 20-fold since I first met you a couple of years ago. So I know you're a busy person.
We're busy, but it's the creativity that comes out of our, there's eight of us or 8.5 of us, I guess will be fair. And just people bring different perspectives. And when you put all that together, then all of a sudden something comes to light and you go, oh, let's try that. So it's really a wonderful opportunity.
It sounds like you really enjoy your work.
I do. I really do.
Awesome. Dolly Bellhouse, thanks for joining us on City Talk today. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming back, we will meet a member of the Emergency Services Department on City Talk. Stay with us. Welcome back to City Talk. Let's meet somebody from Emergency Medical Services, a longtime chief, Antwain Carter. Chief Carter, welcome to City Talk.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you get into the emergency medical services business?
Well, it started 25 plus years ago. I had returned home from the service. I went to Desert Storm from 88 to 91. And when I returned home, I had an MOS that was non-qualifying to civilian work. I was a 19 kilo, an armored tank operator. So I converted or took what they called a student loan and went to EMT school and then followed up with paramedic school.
Well, thank you for your service in Operation Desert Storm. What made you did you also do medical sort of stuff while you were in Desert Storm?
Well, on the tank, every tank had it's a 3-person crew. You have a gunner, loader, and a driver. And each tank, they try to get a representative of what would be considered a first responder, where you have some basic medical training, more importantly, stop the bleed techniques until the medics arrived. And that's what I did. It was called a combat lifesaver.
And did you have to perform those duties from time to time while you were in the service?
Unfortunately, no. So
good. I'm actually glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But that's what sparked your interest in this field, I'm assuming.
Yes, that's what sparked my interest in the field. And then one thing led to another. I became an EMT, and I did one of the rare things, which is went from EMT straight to paramedic school. Back then, it wasn't. I won't say it wasn't. It was sort of frowned on because you needed some experience in the field. But I wanted to continue my education, get it done. I first started out as a volunteer at Baldwin EMS and eventually got a job at Baldwin EMS under Chief Plunkett as well, which gave me a little bit of experience as a paramedic before actually joining the city.
So obviously you must run into some dicey situations from time to time. How do you manage to keep your cool, I guess is what I'm asking.
I always use the term poise under pressure. There's things that really are unsettling. And every day, I tell you what, when people ask us about our job, I try to convince them that at least once or twice a day I laugh because as serious things can be, there's a lot of comical things that occur as well in people's lives and the joy of helping people as well. So it's not always gloom and doom for the most part. There's some great points and a lot of laughter that goes along with our job as well.
So you obviously have quite a bit of experience in the field. When did you make the transition to being in the office and managing others?
Approximately 3 years ago, I became and was honored for a promotion under Chief Ronald Romano to join the ranks of the district chief. And it's been a humbling experience to be on both sides of the fence to experience. Whereas I was on the crew, thinking individually as a crew, now I think about crews. As you say, instead of the one business, I'm looking at the business district. In other words, it is a really humbling experience, and it's given a new breath for me as an occupation and as a profession.
As we record this, it's in the middle of the dead of winter, and it's awfully dangerous just to be out in the streets. Is this the worst time to be an EMT time of year?
You get used to it. You really do.
Okay.
Always. We were just talking about this morning about the 4-wheel drive, and we don't have a choice. We go where we're called. That's the duty. As Coach Tomlin would say, the standard is the standard, and that's what we take to heart. Unfortunately, what goes up has to come down, and Pittsburgh has nothing but hills: South Hills, East Hills, Western Valley, North Hills. So as the ambulance goes up, it has to find a way to get down. So it can be a little bit treacherous, but with a lot of patience and experience, we're able to manage.
So is it difficult to recruit people for your profession these days? Because it's, very, it can be dangerous and it's not easy, that's for sure.
Exactly. There's a national shortage in the profession. There's a national shortage with all jobs right about now with COVID, unfortunately. But with ours, this is taking place prior to COVID. The interest for recruits has dwindled. Even with great pay and benefits, the interest just doesn't exist anymore. The future of the profession, there's some breaths that we got to take here, hopefully. But it is difficult to recruit people and to retain people, more importantly.
How have you been coping with the never-ending COVID?
And this is a shout out to our assistant chief, Mark Pinchak, who really had us prepared for COVID before COVID was even a name. We had a team that was prepared to do Ebola transports prior to COVID. So we already had a team, we already had suits, we had masks, we had respirators, and we had the technical training. We were actually sending people down to Alabama to participate in some of this training way before COVID even started. So when this actually took place, we're one of the few agencies that was prepared for the undertaking of COVID. We have vehicles that were what they call vis clean and prepared to transport the infectious if necessary. So again, we were very well prepared, and part of that was due to Chief Pinchak's foresight of the future and preparation.
Chief Carter, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh. If my accent doesn't give it away, or my yin and my yang doesn't tell you.
What neighborhood?
I grew up in the South Hills, Spring Street, Arlington, Dingler. Went to Arlington Elementary, went to Gladstone Middle School, went to David B. Oliver High School. So I'm a city boy.
Yeah, that was my next question. You've got a hobby, so it sounds like, or maybe it's more than a hobby. What instrument do you play?
I play sax and flute.
Awesome.
Tenor, soprano, saxophone, and the flute.
Are those, that seems it's slightly incompatible. Like one is dainty and delicate and the other is, rough and tumble.
It's all about the keys. Okay. Yeah, they sort of follow the same format and key structures, and they have a lot of similar fingering.
Would you say you're more of a Bill Clinton or a Clarence Clemens, or neither when it comes to the saxophone?
I'm hopefully a more of a John Coltrane.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I didn't know you had taste. All right. Well, you'd recommend a career in government service. It sounds like you like your job.
Yes, I do. I enjoy my job. I come in every day looking for the challenges to help the injured and sick of the city of Pittsburgh and its guests. Like I said, the mission is the mission. The standard is the standard. Pittsburgh EMS is here to take those challenges every day.
Chief Carter, I'll wind it up on that note, but thank you so much for joining us on City Talk today.
Hey, thank you for having me, sir.
That is this episode of City Talk. We will see you down the road.